I have another option here. I have a credit card for a Donald Sutton, and I'm wondering how much he'll pay to get it back. This is actually the customer service on here. Is there a Donald Sutton here that left this? Somebody left that? Here, come up and get, or I'll bring it up to you. We don't have to.
Better believe it.
Some people hate coming up on stage for some reason. And I'm just going to sit back here and watch. Why don't you guys take over? There you go. Do we know that he's actually Donald Sutton? I think his name's probably Bob. Hey, if there's anything that shows up on there, it's just an accident. It wasn't really the beer that we bought at the mitten during intermission is not on there at all. So welcome to the second half. I think you have a bond now. You guys are all survivors. You made it through the first half. And I'm amazed at the strength of character that you came back anyway, or perhaps maybe the locked doors actually worked. Before we get started though, the second half, I got a little bit of history, local history to show you. There's some of you that are as old as I am remember the state hospital in Traverse City when it was still an inpatient psychiatric facility. And it's gone through quite a transformation where they've changed the buildings into offices and restaurants and apartments and those sort of things. But in the basement of one of those was an interesting dollhouse. And that's what I want to share with you, is this house. Nothing give you the look. But so this was down in the basement. One of the workers, when they ran into this, and he thought this would be a cool thing to take home to his daughter. You know, and he wondered what was in it when he first saw it. You know, he opened it up, and all it was in there was a little tiny red wagon. So you can see this little red wagon that was in here. And he thought, well, that's cool. You know, she can put her own dollhouse furniture in there or some such thing as she wants. But so he took it home, gave it to her. He thought she'd be really excited. But for some reason, she never really took to this house. She just kind of looked at it from a distance and thought, I think she thought this was kind of creepy because she claimed at night she could hear strange noises coming from this little house. And especially when it got really dark in the early morning, she'd hear the sound of a little wagon creaking through the house. So she had it pushed all the way against the far end of the bedroom and wouldn't have anything to do with it. And her parents, of course, thought she was really very overly dramatic, like all the little kids on there. And it probably would have been the case on there until one evening when it started to rain. It was just raining lightly, but off in the distance you could hear a little bit of thunder. And she found herself hearing a sound of a baby in between the bits of rolling thunder off in the distance. And despite her fears, she couldn't help herself. She got up and she walked over to the house and she opened the doors. And when she saw the little wagon, it now had a tiny little baby in it. And so she didn't pick it up like I did, I'm braver than she is, but she slammed these doors back shut again, ran over to her bed and dived under the covers and vowed that she was never going to go near this thing again. I mean, for her, this was just too scary of a thing to do, but that rain kept going. And as it rained more, and it rumbled more, she found herself almost without conscious effort. She couldn't resist, and she walked back over again, and she went to the doors, and she unlocked them again, and she opened it up, and the little baby doll had turned into a young lady with long red hair. And she looked at the little doll. She wasn't quite as scared this time for some reason, but she put it back in and closed the doors and went back somewhat less alarmed this time to her bedroom. Or to her bed. She was in the bedroom when she crawled into bed, and she would been thinking about this, listening to the rumbling as the thunder got a little louder, and she kept hearing weird noises. There were strange noises coming from the house. And she got up and she couldn't quite circle around it like I can, but she looked at it and she looked at the sides and she was thinking whether she really wanted to open this or not, because things had gotten weird. And so she steeled her courage and she walked back up. She unlocked the doors and she peeked in a little bit, and then she peeked in a little bit more, and she opened it up, and the doll had become much larger. And she looked at this little doll and she thought it was kind of sweet, and she was going to take it back to bed with her. But for some reason, something told her this doll belonged in the house. So rather than take it back, she put this doll back in, set up her little doll nicely, closed it up, and went back, and she crawled into bed. And as she was walking through and crawling into bed, she tucked herself in, pulled the covers up, and felt pretty snuggled in there because she was no longer afraid of the dollhouse. She realized it was a friendly doll was in there, and she was almost drifted off to sleep when the rain was just gently going, but then suddenly there was a big flash of lightning, and then a and the doll. That's why I want to keep dolls back in the house. And then, of course, we're all going to die from this. But that's the end of the story, is that years later she had lung cancer from the smoke, but it was just a slight problem.